And like I mentioned, the market starting the year very, very well indeed. How well can it do? We saw it up 35% last year. Your thoughts on how well it's likely to do this year?
Well, I'd say it's pretty much an upbeat start, and for some of us analysts, the 35% actually beat the expectations we had. We're thinking more about 30%, but expectedly, most of what we're seeing now is in terms of taking positions by portfolio managers for corporate actions. But it's a pretty much welcome development. One thing that's there is that last year's performance brought the markets to the forefront in terms of government notice, and there are indications in the budget that there's a lot that's going to be done to support the market in terms of infrastructure and in terms of regulation that will be positively affect investors.
So do you think, we saw 35% up last year, do you think we'll see 30, 25? Where do you think we're likely to see this market?
It's pretty much early in the it's pretty much early in the year. I wouldn't want to speculate at this time. We still have the usual challenges to deal with. There's a lag effect of inflation and some of the things that happened in Q4. We'll start to see that as the weeks start to go ahead. There's also, in particular, the thought that MPC has been at, the MPC has set the NPR at 12 for a while, and perhaps there may be need to bring down the rates. All these things, and these are thoughts, it's a school of thought. But all these things would have their play in terms of the money market and the capital markets, and ultimately on stock market performance. Right, so it's still early.
Well, quite a few things that could change how the market performs this year. But let's focus on what's driving the market right now, which is the banking sector. And today we saw UBA up almost 10%, adding to the gains we saw yesterday. And if we take a look at the top gainers this year so far, it's the banks. FCMB is already up 38% this year. We have the likes of Skybank up 27%. Many people are saying the banking sector is likely to outperform, but let's stick with UBA because it's in the news recently because of the restructuring we've seen in terms of how the bank is positioned on the stock market. Your thoughts on that restructuring and the value that UBA portends right now for investors?
Well, for me, it's still a paper under study as I speak, but the highlights of it are pretty much interesting. UBA certainly sees itself as a continental brand, and I have no doubt that the structure on the table right now is that which reflects its intention to actually play the continent as it should. Clearly, what we have with the subsidiaries that have been hived off, in spite of the holding company status, staying on their own and supposedly looking to being listed. What we then have is a UBA that's focused on banking, and that means that they're pretty much interested in playing the banking game and dealing out the services. But that is actually going to mean a lot of competition in the space.
But is there more or less value the way UBA is listed right now, in your view?
Well, there's pretty much more value in there because it's a lean machine, lean in the sense that it doesn't have the baggage of all those subsidiaries and management. It's lean in the sense that it can allow itself to be focused, and it does have a sizable balance sheet with which to attack the banking scene on its own.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, before we end this, I want to get your thoughts on the IPO market this year and what we're likely to see. We're seeing a rights issue from Wando kicking off this year. 55 billion is what they're raising. So it sounds like a huge number, but of course it is a rights issue. It's not an IPO. Your thoughts on how the IPO market is likely to pan out this year?
Well, again, it's a matter of history. Last year saw a very impressive performance on the market. And I dare say that there's a lot in terms of confidence coming back to investors. The returns are there to be made. And it's a clear opportunity for listed companies to actually bring to the fore new offerings to raise capital. And for those companies who may have been considering a listing in their plans and may have held these back over the past couple of years, they may be thinking this is the time to step into the market.
Yes or no? Yes or no? Will we see an IPO this year in your view?
It'll be interesting. I expect that we should see one, and I think the time is ripe. I think the market is ripe, and I think there are those brave companies out there There are those who have been speculating, and there will be one or two who will brave the market.